Hi, I'm Kate Hoy with the Cornell Benn Center and the Smarter Lunchrooms movement. This video segment is in correspondence with a PowerPoint titled Introduction to Behavioral Economics, available at smarterlunchrooms.org. In this video segment, I'm going to discuss three separate topics: the School Lunchroom Challenge, behavioral economics theory, as well as provide a brief introduction to the Smarter Lunchrooms movement. The School Lunch Challenge encompasses several different issues which impact school food change, many issues which we're quite familiar with, including rising obesity rates. Rising obesity rates have no doubt increased scrutiny on school food programs, as school food programs have the sheer volume of participation. Millions of kids across the country are fed daily by the National School Lunch Program. This increased scrutiny has put pressure on school administrators, food service directors, and leaders to increase the nutritional quality of the foods being provided. Cutting sugared beverages, pizza, highly processed foods, incorporating vegan and vegetarian options, these are all health initiatives which need to be balanced with what the consumer, the student, wants. On top of this, food service directors need to maintain the low-cost nature of their program and participation, all while encouraging healthful, long-term decisions and informing stakeholders on a daily basis about their progress. Ultimately, heavy-handed and short-sighted interventions can be worse for students, as well as not be what students are looking for. So what do we do about this? This leads me to behavioral economics. Behavioral economics is a field in economics which incorporates psychological research with behavioral implications that may not otherwise be included in classical economic models. This means that behavioral economics considers psychological and behavioral variables in an economic decision-making process. Wow, that's a lot of big words. I'm getting ready to go through a couple theories which I think you may find more familiar. The first is choice architecture. Choice architecture is the designing of a choice to lead someone to an outcome without forcing them. Every parent across the country has done this. Do you want to go to bed now or in 5 minutes? Either way, the decision has already been made. The next set of principles go hand in hand, as they're both on the same coin, just opposite sides: reactance and attribution. Reactance is the rebellion to a limitation on freedoms. For example, a school in the Midwest decided that their students were getting too much sodium, too much sugar, and too many extra calories from ketchup. So they used a ketchup monitor. This ketchup monitor was responsible for handing out a single ketchup packet upon request as the student left the hot lunch line. How do you think this ended? I'm sure you can come up with millions of different scenarios. In this particular situation, the students at this school, as they crossed the graduation stage, provided their principal with a single ketchup packet as they received their diploma. That means that there was a mountain of ketchup that this particular principal had to take home at the end of the ceremonies. On top of this, the students remembered it over the course of the year. So not only did they react, they remembered it. Attribution is the exact opposite. It's the confidence in a decision that an individual has made. I made this decision, and I will make this decision again. We tend to use the example of the carrots versus celery study. In an elementary school, we provided carrots and celery as an option through the hot lunch line as students came through. What we found is that students ate 91% of whichever vegetable they took when they were provided with the option. When they were only provided with a single option, they only ate 69% of the vegetable. So what do we know about behavioral economics and food decisions? Well, we know that there are two different types of food decisions that we often make: deliberative or emotional. Deliberative is very rational and logical, whereas emotional, as I'm sure you know, is kind of a knee-jerk reaction. The amount of our cognitive resources available dictates which one of these decisions we'll make. For example, if you're stressed or tired, you're more likely to make emotional food choices. In the event that you are stressed and tired, it takes effort to resist temptation. This is something that we like to refer to as hot versus cold state decisions. The hot state, we tend to eat for taste, for convenience, for size. This is where only a giant hamburger and an ice cream sundae will do. The cold state tends to be based off of price, health information. We tend to buy food more moderately and more moderately sized. I like to refer to both of these as either going to the grocery store with a list or going hungry. When I go to the grocery store hungry, I'm in a hot state. I tend to buy hundreds of things and come home with nothing that I could make a meal out of. In the cold state, whenever I take my list, I tend to leave with what's on my list and maybe 1 or 2 impulse buys. So what does this have to do with kids and how they eat? We find that kids don't have a fully developed rational system. They can't understand long-term consequences, and they often react to paternalism. This means that they're in a hot state all the time. But fortunately, many kids find some of these healthful options appealing and attractive. How do we use that to our advantage? This is where the Smarter Lunchrooms movement comes into play. We take the behavioral economic theories that I mentioned earlier, apply them to school lunchrooms in an effort to increase the taking and consumption of those nutrient-dense beverages and foods. We want to make these kids feel like these healthy food items are cool and fun, make them appealing, make them seem like something that they think they could do and they can have. This is why the Smarter Lunchrooms movement supplies low-cost and no-cost solutions to lunchrooms. Many of the economic principles I mentioned earlier do not require much more than just designing a decision-making process. As I mentioned earlier, all of this information is backed up by printable resources and lesson plans available at smarterlunchrooms.org. And remember, it's not nutrition until it's eaten.